Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today, before we start with our news analysis for the day, we have two important announcements. The first is with respect to the magazine. The first edition of the magazine from November 2022 up until now April 2023 is out now. This was released yesterday, that was on Wednesday, and this is comprehensive with about 40 pages, and the second edition will be released from May up until December in the month of December. And this magazine is very important and will cover all topics comprehensively for the KAS exams, CTI exam, Group C, PDO, FDA and other state level exams as well. The other announcement is with respect to the test series. We have started with our test series, and the first test series was done yesterday, which is on 18/10/2023 at 10 AM. The next will be on 22nd, which is the All Karnataka GS test series for CTI and Group C exams, followed by the All Karnataka Communication Paper test series for CTI and Group C exams, followed by the weekly current affairs test series on 25/10/2023 at 10 AM. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the test series and you will understand what kind of questions can be anticipated, so that you are much aware and you don't have to get confused in your actual examination. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is speaking about explosion of digital uncertainty. Before we start with our analysis for the day, what I want you to do is like these videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. This article here is speaking about digital uncertainty. What is the digital uncertainty that this article speaks about? The article speaks about what is called as generative artificial intelligence. We have understood what is generative artificial intelligence in the past few daily current affairs discussion. This generative artificial intelligence basically works on the parameters that you would be able to given some information to the system, the machine learning language and the algorithms that are fed into the system, and as a result of you feeding some information to the system is able to assimilate the knowledge and also give out new information as well. So some information is fed into the system with its memory, the system with its intellectual capacity that is already being fed would be able to give out new information to you. That is what is called as artificial intelligence in the generative form. So what happens in generative artificial intelligence? A certain amount of data, certain amount of information and few programs and algorithms are fed into the system, and as a result of this information that is fed, it gives you new information. It is generating new information and ultimately giving you the output in the form of required anticipation. So generative artificial example includes ChatGPT, so on and so forth. So in case you want to understand something through the ChatGPT, you would be able to do so. So generative artificial intelligence of late has captured the imagination of the public, the businesses as well as the governments alike. So we have the government which is planning to explore it, and it thinks that the future is of the artificial intelligence. Similarly, we also have the IT companies as well as other companies working in the artificial intelligence, which also believe that artificial intelligence is the next big thing that is going to happen. However, all these government offices, the public, the businesses and the government alike is also creating and assuming that this can become a new threat as well in the form of explosion of the digital uncertainty. So what exactly happens? Because we are able to feed in lot of information to the machine, we have been using software abstractions and we have been able to link the hardware to the existing software. This has resulted in a massive disruption to the generative artificial intelligence, and because of this massive change in the artificial intelligence, massive number of people, vast majority of the people are ignorant of the implications. And one such issue the author speaks is in reference to what is called as the cognitive warfare. This cognitive warfare will happen in the near future, is happening right now, and the scale and the magnitude of the threat that it is posing cannot be imagined, says the author. So the first question that we have is, what is this cognitive warfare? As the very name denotes, cognitive basically is about the knowledge. Cognitive basically is about the wisdom. So when a person wisdom and the person's knowledge is hit constantly by fake news or by a certain agenda or by certain information which may be fake in nature, and the person is able to change his perception towards that particular ideology or a set of information that he already has, that is what is called as cognitive warfare. So what is cognitive warfare? It is the warfare that is executed by a country or by a religion or by a certain individuals or by a certain person, whereby he is able to change the ideology or the information or a certain facts with respect to another individual, such that the original information is changed into a fake information. This fake information is delivered to that individual and the individual is made to believe that information, and as a result there is untoward incidents that may surface in that particular locality. So what is cognitive warfare? We have seen different kinds of warfare: air warfare, naval warfare, and we also have the land warfare as well. And similar to that, what we have is the cognitive warfare, which is hitting on your thought process, which is hitting on your mental capacity, which is hitting on your intellectual capacity, which is creating a turbidity and a form of instability in the society by hitting on the thought process, is what is called as cognitive warfare. So cognitive warfare is an agenda that has been set by few countries, few individuals and few people, whereby they hit on the cognitive ability, the knowledge ability of another individual. What are the ways and means of communicating with the cognitive warfare? Let's say, for example, we are making use of the fake news. So the fake news happens to be the ways and means of executing this particular program. So what happens in fake news? Let's say, for example, there is a genuine news and then there is fake news as well. Let's say, for example, there is a person who might have gone to a particular village. This person is kidnapper of the small children. It is not the actual news, but then that is the fake news. Or for example, a certain image can be fabricated as well. This image can be fabricated in such a way that people start assuming that this is the original image, and as a result there are number of celebrities whose life has come under threat primarily because their privacy is invaded, and at the same time their images are morphed. Then there are sexual pornographic videos that are released, and as a result what is happening is there is a perception that is created which may not be right, but then these fake news are spread in such a way that the assumption is that this is going to happen. Number of people have also committed suicides as well because of the fake news. So the cognitive warfare is hitting on the informational capacity of that individual, whereby the entire narrative is changed. For example, let's say in the cognitive warfare, you are made to believe that the food that you are eating is not good for you. For example, you might be eating ragi, or for example you might be eating other cereals, so on and so forth. But then there is a cognitive warfare in the form of information stuffing. What exactly happens? You are made to believe that Coca-Cola or any other brand, example, I don't want anything stamped against me, or any other drink for that matter, will be very useful for you. Or for example, there is a milk powder, or for example you would add something like the Horlicks or the Complan, or this is just for the sake of example, they are good, I don't want any cases against me. So there might be some of the drinks in the market which are called as the energy boosters. These are not energy boosters per se, but they are having excessive sugar content. So what do? They put out the information in such a way that this particular food item or this drink is good for you, and whatever you are consuming for like decades and eons together is not good for you. So a narrative is built, and at the same time your country is based on a particular frame of ideology or traditions. India is also known for its spirituality. India is also known for its Vedic customs. India is also known for its Ayurvedic practices. But what exactly happens? We always require a validation from the West, and in this particular backdrop they put in some information saying that so and so practice that has been practiced in India for a very long period of time is not right. So a narrative is built, and that is what is called as cognitive warfare. So when cognitive warfare happens, then a certain perception is changed and you would question the entire identity itself. And when you question the entire identity, how will you start trusting your people? How will you start trusting the process? How will you start trusting the entire premise on which your intellectual capacity is resting? So cognitive warfare is hitting on your thought process so that you can change your entire thought process to the way that the other person wants to. So basically this cognitive warfare is where you would be able to build and construct fake news, build thought process, and ultimately you convince an individual that this is right, whatever you are assuming till date is wrong. That is what is called as the cognitive warfare. So this is equal to modern warfare such as domains of maritime, air as well as space. And when this cognitive warfare is implemented by a group of people or by an individual or by an organization or by a government, then once the people are receptive to those thoughts, they lose the trust, and this breaches confidentiality and the laws of the governance capabilities as well. For example, there might be a government which will have a certain ideology. You are constantly brainwashed to believe that this government is not good for your country, that this government is ultimately going to take the country to the historical imprint, and such is the kind of molding and information that is given such that you assume it to be true. It may not be true as well, so you assume it to be true, and then this create a ruckus and a chaos in the society, which is called as the cognitive warfare. So what is cognitive warfare? It is the intellectual warfare. It is the warfare on the presumption that whatever information and the intellectual capacity you have is wrong, and that will be substituted, reimposed with some other ideology, which is called as the cognitive warfare. And this will hit cognitively and psychologically, and we become the slaves of the digital network. For example, you might have become the slave of the Instagram, or you might have become the slave of, let's say, a TikTok or Facebook or any other digital social media platform for that matter. Everything has to be regulated. You should know when to use it and how to use it, what should be used for it, and what are the advantages of it. But if you're constantly using it, wasting your time endlessly, that is also a cognitive warfare. That is also a digital warfare on you, that you're not able to hold on to these thoughts and you're wasting your time on these social media platforms. So this is where the author says that whenever such information is flooded into a particular country, the content that is being spread is acting as a genuine content masquerading as truth, but that is not the truth, says the author. So artificial intelligence that is equal or superior to human intelligence, which will penetrate whole new sectors and replace the human judgment, intuition and creativity, and ultimately it is the humans who are bound to suffer, says this article. So the article also goes on to speak about the massive investments that have been made. Today, almost third of the countries in the most advanced countries of the world investing more in intangible assets than the physical one. They are putting themselves directly at the risk of the artificial intelligence. Another estimate is that over 50% of the market value of the top 500 companies sitting in intangibles, they too are deeply vulnerable, as firms large and small spend billions of dollars to migrate to the cloud, and more sensors constantly send out sensitive information. The risk goes out in the geometrical progression. And one such example the author also brings into picture is the Hamas-Israel conflict. We know for the fact that we recently have issues between Israel as well as Hamas. How is Israel not able to stop the Hamas? When you look at Israel, it is known for its intelligence, but this intelligence of Israel is basically on the basis of the artificial intelligence. Since artificial intelligence failed this time, they were not able to get artificial intelligence tool activation forms, and as a result, this information that artificial intelligence was given to Israel over a long period of time ultimately failed, because of which Hamas were able to launch the rocket. Had they had the information, Hamas would have not able to do so, but because the artificial intelligence failed at this particular moment, they were able to not stop the Hamas from penetrating into their system. That is what has led to failure of the artificial intelligence as well. So the author goes on to conclude that in the near future, what we will have is a psychological warfare cognitive warfare, thinking warfare, knowledge warfare, and intellectual warfare at that particular moment. If we have to bring a change, what we require is the government, the private, as well as the civil society all come together. The civil society will have to start thinking, start reading more, and they should start avoiding use of social media excessively, because this is able to change the perception in a negative way. So as much as possible, read properly, understand properly, become strong when it comes to your own opinion, and not be influenced by the opinions built by another country or its individuals or its countries. And the private sector will also have to mold artificial intelligence in such a way that it does not take over the intelligence of the human beings, and at the same time the government should also bring an awareness about the impact of this cognitive warfare. Is what is this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the BRI at 10, some hits and many misses. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. We have one of the initiatives taken by the Chinese government called as the Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation. What is this Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation? We have the Belt and the Road Initiative, which is also called as the BRI. This was an initiative taken by the Chinese government basically to build the infrastructure world over. So China has huge pockets. It has huge pockets through which it is able to fund the infrastructure projects world over. Not just in the neighboring countries, but it has plans to expand in European countries, South American countries, African countries world over. So the Belt and the Road Initiative is to expand the globalization efforts of the Chinese, basically to work on the infrastructural support that it plans to give to all these countries with its huge pockets. In order to ensure that this particular program of the Chinese is ultimately turning into reality, they create a platform and a forum called as the Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation. What is this Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation? So all those countries which are within the boundaries of China, when I say boundaries, it's not the physical boundaries, it is the BRI boundaries that we are speaking about. All those countries that are part of this particular BRI series or the BRI infrastructure program, these countries, they all assimilate, they all come together and they discuss how infrastructural projects can be executed, how trade and investment programs can be executed, how business organizations can come together amidst all these countries. They also focus on a certain parameters as to how well they would be able to execute a particular program. So they need a platform, they need a conference hall, they need one of the areas where they would be able to discuss all these areas, and that happens to be the Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation. So they have a structure that has been laid out for the BRI, that is the Belt and the Road Initiative. How well then can they execute this program is present under the Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation. How is this program going to be implemented? How is this going to program be successful as well? What are the shortcomings of this particular program? Everything literally are part of this Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. In the past, there were 3 seminars. One, the first seminar or the first session took place in the year 2017. The second session happened in the year 2019, and the third session is currently being undertaken right now in China for the year 2023. Since the third year of Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation is currently being undertaken in China, that is why we are discussing about the Belt and the Road Initiative. So remember, when we speak about the Belt and the Road Forum for International Cooperation, it is nothing but the political and economic forum for the Belt and the Road Initiative, where all the countries come together. Those countries which are actually part of this BRI, they're all coming together and discuss how infrastructural projects, trade and investment, business related, energy and other areas can be implemented when it comes to their infrastructural support. Now the question is, why did the Chinese come up with this this BRI initiative? That is because China as a country wanted to project itself as a superpower. It also wanted to demoralize the spirits of United States of America. Immediately after 1990s, when we had the balkanization of the Soviet Union, you had many countries that were created. Immediately after 1990s, Soviet Union, which was one of the major superpower, was not a superpower, and we had the unipolar world in the form of United States of America. So the Chinese felt felt that there is a lacuna, there is a deficiency, that we do not have another ideology representing a particular ideology. So they started assuming that they have to take another power. So they wanted to give counter to United States of America. In order to give counter to it, what we require is an ideology. What you also require is a premise on the basis of which you would be able to convince other countries as well. Countries do not fall just to ideology, they also fall for the financial huge pockets as well. Since China had huge pockets which it had garnered over a period of time because of the establishment of the manufacturing base, because it was also able to export a lot of products to other countries. During the presidency of Xi, when Xi became the president of China, he immediately came up with this BRI project. So through this particular project, when Xi Jinping came up with this project, China wanted to also become a global power. China was an Asian power. China was something of a regional power. This regional power arithmetics went on to expand to the global power. So they wanted to be a global power, and as a result, they initiated this BRI. So the first major argument is because they wanted to move from becoming a regional power to a global power, and they wanted to increase and strengthen their power, they initiated this BRI program. They also wanted to reboot the globalization and rectify the shortcomings that were persisting in the society. So what was that? The shortcomings is that we had a unipolar world, and that unipolar world was in the form of United States of America. United States of America had spread the wings of its horizon and its political diplomacy in every country. So China also to want to reap the benefits of it. It wanted to take the advantages of globalization, and ultimately this BRI became a savior for China. They also wanted to develop new transport and trade arteries as an alternative. Why? That is because we have one of the states called as the state of Malacca, and this state of Malacca happens to be a narrow state near the Indonesian region, and that is where we also have the Andaman and Nicobar. What Chinese felt is most of its trade related activities happens along the state of Malacca, and if it is ever stopped, where countries would be able to bar it, where we will not have any uniform movement of the goods from one country to another, if at that particular moment it is stopped, it could harm the Chinese economy. So instead of relying on only the state of Malacca, which is a strategic location, what the Chinese wanted to do was develop alternative routes as well. In case we are able to stop Chinese, let's say for example near Andaman Nicobar or any other country is able to stop the Chinese, it will not be able to get the energy reserves, and as a result its economy would be hit. So in order to develop alternatives, it has developed Gwadar port from Pakistan. So up until Arabian Sea Gwadar port, it will be able to come up there, and from the Gwadar port it is constructing the CPEC as well. Which CPEC? Which India has not accepted because it violates the sovereignty of the country, because it passes through the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. India has always opposed it, but since right now Pakistan has illegally taken over a few parts of Kashmir, which is called as the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and that is why an alternative development route has been developed by China. Similarly, they have also taken up routes via Iran as well. They have also developed routes via Afghanistan as well through this particular initiative of BRI, that is the Belt and the Road Initiative. Also, they also wanted to use local currency in their trade, thus in effect elbowing out the dollar. If I ask you which is one of the major currencies in the world, the immediate answer would be dollar. Most of us use dollars in the exchange forums, and we also want to use dollars in case we have the movement of the currencies, in case we have to buy or exchange the goods and services. Everything happens on the basis of dollar, and most of the countries also start using dollar for their economy as well. As an alternative to the dollar, what the Chinese wanted to bring was its own currency. So this is where they wanted to bring massive infrastructural change through the BRI programs and ultimately convince the people that we are here to stay, that we are here to give you an alternative to the United States of America. However, this particular projection of China is not actually right. It has its own share of issues as well. What are these issues that we are speaking about? One, it has created a large-scale ecological damage, displacement of people, disputes over payouts, and labor unrest as well. How? Let me give you an example. Whenever China goes to a particular country, what exactly happens? It does not give importance to the environment. It does not give importance to the local people, which means that whenever Chinese go to a particular country to build up an infrastructural project, they bring in their own Chinese people to execute that particular project. In fact, Shashi Tharoor ji has also written in the book called as Pax Indica that whenever you go to Africa, Africa respects Indians far more in respect to the Chinese. Why? That is because when Indian companies are executing a particular project, they take the help of the locals. They also provide employment opportunities to the locals, and as a result, they help in ensuring that there is development of that particular region. But at the same time, since locals are accommodated, they are also empowered over a period of time. But what do the Chinese do? Whenever the Chinese go to an African country or any other South American country, they not only infuse a lot of money, but they also bring Chinese people with them as well. So the people are not part of the decision making. The people are not part of the decision making process. They are not empowered over a period of time, but it is only the Chinese who execute a project, and as a result, there is brewing enmity and antipathy and animosity towards the people, which is resulting in a certain section of people not accepting the Chinese presence. So what happens? There is displacement of the people, and whenever, even if a small section of the people are also becoming part of this work scale, they are not even paid properly as well. This creates labor unrest as well. Let me give you example of what has happened in Balochistan. Balochistan happens to be one of the regions within Pakistan. So people have always fought against the Chinese presence primarily because they felt that the Chinese have been taking away all their resources. They are not giving anything back to the Balochistan people, and the Balochistan people in Pakistan have also fought tooth and nail against the Chinese as well. So there is anxieties related to Chinese laborers filling up the positions earmarked for the locals, which is the major debacle. This has happened in Sri Lanka. This has happened in African countries as well. This has happened in Balochistan in Pakistan, and this has become the major impediment when it comes to the Chinese way of operation. Let's take another example. Laos, the listening super Laos currently has superfast trains, impressive dam projects over the Mekong River. It cannot hide the woes of those left high and dry due to lack of compensation or others on whom droughts due to dam projects have wreaked havoc. Laos owes China around 12.12 billion, which is about 65% of its GDP. So the amount of work that is executed by China in Laos is to such a scale that it contributes to almost about 65% of the GDP, and they should be paying back the Chinese. And this is what we call as the debt trap diplomacy. This debt trap diplomacy is where I would be giving money because I have huge coffers and huge pockets. I would be able to give you money, and I would be able to execute an infrastructure project in that particular country, and when the country is not able to pay back China the money that it has taken, this creates a debt trap, and the Chinese take over that particular infrastructure. And one such example that we have is in the form of Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. And then we also have the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor, where the Pakistani legislative report unearthed that while China cornered 91% of the Gwadar port's revenue, Pakistan pocketed just 9% in that. So this again reflects what we have been speaking. So according to the World Bank, 675 million people are without electricity. Globally, around 2.3 billion people lack potable water. 450 million live beyond the coverage of a broadband signal. So the lending institution from China, bridging the infrastructure gap, will need capital infusion of 1.5 trillion annually through 2030, which is appropriately 4.5% of the GDP of low and middle income countries. Under China's Marshall Plan, motorways, power plants, ports, railway networks and digital infrastructure has been built, but this is all under such cost that we just discussed. And as a result, in an alternative to the BRI initiative, what we have is couple of other initiatives as well. One is taken up by the United States of America and Japan, which is called as Infrastructure Investment Alternatives in the Indo-Pacific region. Followed by this, the G7 came up with a program called as the Build Back Better World B3 initiative, and this was recently had become what is called as the Partnership for the Global Infrastructure and Investment, and the G20 recently in the Delhi summit also proposed India Middle East Economic Corridor as well. In fact, we also have India and Japan which has taken up similar initiatives in Sri Lanka, and it has also taken up initiatives in African countries as well. We also have India, Australia and Japan which has also come up with similar such initiatives as well. So these are the alternatives that we currently have in order to oppose the Belt and the Road Initiative, because the Belt and Road Initiative has problems with respect to all these areas that we just discussed. An alternative in the form that we can challenge the Chinese hegemony is all these that we just discussed. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the Aboriginal referendum in Australia. The article here may not be important from the UPSC examination point of view or from the civil services examination point of view or any state level examinations. But this article speaks about one of the concept called as compulsory voting. This compulsory voting as a concept is important from the civil services examination point of view. What is this compulsory voting? If this is imported into our in-books, what will be the likely advantages, what are the concerns with it, is what we will try and understand with this article. The article as a whole is speaking about Aboriginal referendum in Australia. That may not be important from the examination, but in this article it makes a mention of compulsory voting in Australia. So we will understand the concept of compulsory voting. What is compulsory voting? Let's understand the meaning of it. Whenever there is election that happens, what do? Most of us will go vote for a political party. We also vote for the candidate who we wish will win in that particular election. So what do? We take our election cards, we go to the polling booth, cast our vote and come back. But is it compulsory? Is it compulsory that we all have to compulsorily go to the polling booth? No. In India, compulsorily voting is not a necessity, which means only few who would want to go would go and vote, but for rest of them it is a holiday. They sit at home, they do not want to take the responsibility of the country, only bark when they want to and howl when they want to when things don't go their way, and they speak about all kinds of law and order issue, but then when they want to vote, they do not go vote, but instead they rest at home and it becomes a public holiday for them. So that is where the concept of compulsory voting comes into picture. Let's say there is a law which mandates that every person who is above 18 years of age by default should have his name enrolled in the electoral roll, and he has to go to the polling booth and cast his vote. So if it is made compulsory, and if it is not, a person will be fined or he will engage in the community service if such provisions are present. That is what is called as compulsory voting. When it comes to compulsory voting, every individual who is above 18 years of age, if he has a valid voter ID, if he is not suffering from any critical illness, he is not able to go up to that particular polling booth, such is what is called as the compulsory voting. When we speak about compulsory voting in India, we have Article 326 of the Indian Constitution read with Section 62 of the Representation of the People's Act of 1951, which speaks about voting. One is a person whose name who is above 18 years of age. He has his name in the electoral list, and then he is not disqualified. That is, he is not behind the prison, so on and so forth. If such a person is able to vote, that person is eligible to vote, and if it is made compulsory, that is what is called as compulsory voting. As of now, we do not have a compulsory voting in India, but compulsory voting is present in Australia. That is why this article becomes important. Compulsory voting is present in Australia, but it is not present in India. So if compulsory voting is made compulsory in India, what are the advantages and what are the issues with respect to compulsory voting is what is this article. When you go back to the compulsory voting, during the discussion on the People's Representation Bill in Parliament, the idea of including compulsory voting was mooted by a member. However, it was rejected by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji when the discussions was happening in the Constituent Assembly, primarily because he felt that compulsory voting cannot be an aspect of India because of the huge population that we have. In fact, Dinesh Goswami Committee 19 1999 also rejected this very principle and the recommendation, primarily because it was in consensus with what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji said, that is, the population of India is too huge for us to actually go into this mode of compulsory voting. Compulsory voting bill 2004 was introduced as a private member bill by Dr. Bachchi Singh Rawat, a member of parliament in the Lok Sabha. However, that private member bill also gave exemption only in certain cases like in the form of illness. This ultimately did not also become reality. We have another private bill related to compulsory voting introduced by J.P. Agarwal, member of parliament in 2009, and large number of polling booths at the convenient places is what he proposed, and special arrangements for senior citizens, persons with physical disability and pregnant women should be provided once compulsory voting is initiated. Now the question is, what is this private members bill? Understand this very carefully. What is a private members bill? We have the government bill, we also have the private bill. If it is the minister who represents the government, if he is proposing it, it happens to be the government bill. Anyone else apart from the minister who is not part of the council of minister proposing is called as the private members bill. Even if it is a member, it can be an MLA or it can be an MP. They might be from the same political party, but if they are not the ministers in the government, that also becomes a private members bill. Now the question is, now that compulsory voting has been initiated, it has been made compulsory, what are the likely advantages? Most of us in India do not turn up for the elections. There are low polling numbers as much as 55%. It is as less as 45% as well in some of the remote pockets. So the problem is, when you become the part of democracy, you are eligible to actually say and give out your viewpoint in the form of voting. You do not like an ideology, you do not like a political party, how else do you have a say in the democracy? And that is by voting. So when you become part of compulsory voting, if compulsory voting is brought into the picture, every person will come and vote, and as a result we will have at most 90% and more, because critical illness people may not be able to come. There are people who would not be able to join because they're working for the country. In such a condition, what if there are NRIs who are outside the country? In such a condition, if compulsory voting is above 90% or so, the real meaning of democracy will come into the existence, where every single person participates, the educated also participates. In that case, they would be able to reflect on the thoughts and select the right candidate. That is the major advantage. But then there are issues that are concerning as well. When it comes to not voting, there are few people who would not want to vote because they feel that option of not voting is a sign of protest. That is why they do not want to vote, and at the same time this also creates what is called as donkey voting. This is what we see in Australia, which means that whenever a person is forced to come and vote in an election, whosoever the first person's name is, they will simply vote for that particular person instead of using the logic or having an ideology or representing a particular political party. Because you are forcing me to come to the polling booth and asking me to vote for a person, whosoever the person is in the top list, that person would be voted, which is called as donkey voting, which is persisting in Australia. Then the 255th Law Commission report, which says electoral right of the voter includes the right to vote or refrain from voting at an election. Since the since the Law Commission of India says so, since I have the right to vote, I also have the right to refrain from voting according to the 255th Law Commission report. In fact, former Chief Election Commissioner Nazim Zaidi also says compulsory voting regime is not feasible in India due to huge population. So these are some of the arguments in favor of the compulsory voting, some of the arguments against compulsory voting, and issues persisting with the compulsory voting. But this becomes very important for your examination, because compulsory voting is present in Australia, in Brazil, and in many other countries as well. If it is brought to India, what are the likely consequences of it? There can be a question as well. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Israel to allow aid to move into Gaza from Egypt. Because of the interference of the United States of America, Israel has now said that in case there are countries which are wanting to send goods and services, then they would be able to send it through Gaza, and people would be able to get it in Gaza as well. but on a condition that this particular food items or any other services that will be going is only for the people of Gaza, and this should not be diverted towards the Hamas. So basically they go on to say that in case there are any services that are being provided, this humanitarian assistance that will be provided from Egypt or any other country can reach Gaza, but this should not be diverted towards the Hamas, and that is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from the preliminary examination point of view. Remember, the article here is speaking about MQ-9B drones. The MQ-9B drones are Predator drones. There are two types. One is called as the Sky Guardian. The other is called as the Sea Guardian for the Navy. The maximum speed of it is 388 km per hour. Maximum range is 11,112 km. It has a maximum endurance of 40 hours. Maximum altitude it would be able to raise is about 40,000, and it has wide wingspan which is 79 feet and length is about 38 feet. These are some of the features of the Predator, which happens to be accepted by India, and United States of America is exporting these drones. So what will be the significance of it? The significance, it will enhance the intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities of India's armed forces across domains, and it has two features, two maritime variants. One happens to be Sky Guardian, the other happens to be Sea Guardian. The Sea Guardian will be used for the Navy, and it will be a UAV which will be for all types of weather conditions. It also has safely integrity into the civilian airspace. And what are the advantages? In case it is along the border areas, let's say for example we have China on the eastern and the northeastern side, and on the western side what we have is Pakistan. So in this particular area what we can have is these drones which can be employed. They can constantly be used in that particular area for reconnaissance, and if any information has to be shared, the information will be shared immediately as well. So we have two variants. One is the Sky Guardian, which is for the Army and the Air Force. Then we have the Sea Guardian, which is for the Navy. These are some of the important details with respect to these drones. So kindly look into it. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.